Today we're going to begin with an exercise. You're going to need two things. First, this ink container at your desks, and this piece of paper sitting in front of you at your chair. What you're going to do is you're going to unscrew the ink container. You're going to squeeze it out. Squeeze all the ink out of the little nib. Dip it back into the ink container. Let go of the suction. That means that it's probably sucked up the ink that it needs to, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to be putting 3 dots on this sheet of paper, anywhere that you like. So now that I have my wet ink here, I'm going to let kind of gravity take its course. Maybe give it a little tap. And when you're kind of satisfied with your mark, you're done. Set it aside, and it's time to dive into our lesson. Lady Gaga. I'm sure you are all very familiar with her outlandish performances and her wild costumes. You know her better than I do. But something about her that you probably don't know is that she actually steals from a famous art movement, and specifically a famous artist from the 20th century. That art movement is called Surrealism, and the artist she steals from, Salvador Dali. Why should you care about the Surrealists? Why would Lady Gaga care about the Surrealists? Why would she be stealing from them? Well, in the history of art, there's this natural progression where boundaries are getting broken. And at the turn of the century, artists were really exploring what they could do with art, how far they could take things. And this movement of this group of people came along, and they started to dive into the subconscious mind, into their dreams, to really bring forth things that we as throughout human history had never seen before. And you're about to be introduced to the inner workings of their mind. Frida Kahlo is a Mexican surrealist painter and one of the most well-known female artists of her time. Kahlo employed non-rational and dreamlike images to bring forward a discussion about her personal struggles, her Mexican heritage, and her political beliefs. René Magritte was a famous surrealist Dutch painter whose core philosophy was to place ordinary and commonplace objects next to one another to create a new and extraordinary story. Max Ernst was a famous German surrealist painter who employed chance to create his bizarre landscapes. He would begin a painting by laying paper on the floorboards, tile, brick, or whatever was at hand, then would rub them with graphite to produce strange and unusual shapes. These shapes would dictate and mold his surrealist landscapes. Max Ernst employed chance in his making of artwork, and you guys are going to do the same thing. As a matter of fact, you already have. Remember that black dot? Well, you're going to look at that thing, you're going to turn it around, you're going to see what your subconscious mind starts to produce, and then you're going to launch from there using a couple tools I'm about to teach you to make your surrealist masterpiece. Let's look at some student examples. So that's where we're headed. But you need to know the things that I'm going to grade you on and what's going to allow you to be successful in this lesson. So I'm going to introduce you to the principle of contrast, and I'm going to show you how to create contrast using crosshatching. First, let's talk about contrast. This is one of the tools that artists use to draw or pull the viewer's eye to certain places in a picture. If I have black and white next to each other, boom, they're going to stand out. If I have something very large and very small off in the distance, I'm telling the viewer where to look and what to look at. And so let's look at a couple of examples of how contrast is used. When you look at these examples, notice how the large and small objects tell your eye where to look. Kahlo uses texture to draw your eyes to the smooth of her face, and Dolly uses opposing textures to bring meaning to his narratives. Notice how Magritte, Dolly, and Kahlo use light and dark values to show you what's important in their drawings. So you guys just learned about contrast, and I'm going to introduce you to the technique right now that's going to help you create contrast in your final drawing. We're going to use these folded sheets of paper at your desks and a ballpoint pen to create a grayscale. Now, with this grayscale, you go from lightest to darkest. You can create all of these different shades using just one single ballpoint pen and create a really dynamic, powerful drawing. So I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to get some practice, and then you're going to get to apply this in your final drawing. So you want to start by building up different lines going in different directions, and as you build these lines on top of each other, they're going to get darker and darker, and you're going to create that contrast. So I'm just going to start. So this is 1 being the lightest, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be dark. And I'm just going to start building up the layers and create the different values in between light and dark. So for the first one, I just take my lines and gently start building them up in one direction. I'm using a Sharpie so that you guys can see this on camera, but at your desks, you're going to be using a ballpoint pen. This also gives you an opportunity to practice using your ballpoint pen and get used to the tool before we have to move into our final drawing. So I've done my first value. It's just it's a really light shade, just one direction. I move on to the next one. I do the same thing. And once I finish that, then I go in the opposite direction. And I crisscross it. And as you can see, it's a darker shade of gray. And next we move down to the next line and we do the same thing. So I go the way that I started with, then I go the same way as the way up above. And then I'm going to go straight up and down. And we make our way through this. Finally, we do the same thing down below. And we just keep building up those layers until we start getting darker. And the whole aim of this assignment, or part of the assignment, is to 1, get used to using your ballpoint pen. 2, get used to using crosshatch lines to create different values, different shades that are going to help you make contrast. So I'm building up these lines, I'm getting used to my pen. I'm going to go straight up and down now, just like I did above. As you can see, it's getting darker. Now, the whole aim of this is to get a nice, subtle change from the different shades. mine's not looking so smooth. So at this point, when I'm kind of here, I want to go back in and maybe fill in some holes. Sort of make my fine-tuning adjustments. Get that nice, even grade like the examples you saw on the slides. So why don't you guys focus on this, I'll walk around and come check on you and make sure that you're doing it correctly, and I'll help you if you have any questions. Alright you guys, so you just finished your value scales, and those are going to come in handy as a tool as we progress in this assignment. But before we begin our Something Out of Nothing project, we need to go through our grading scale and the process that you need to follow to be successful at this assignment. Number 1, use all 5 values in the value scale. You're going to have that tool next to you, and if you use all 5 values, you're going to be successful in this drawing and you're going to get a good grade on this part of the project. Number 2, you must utilize everything that we've learned about contrast through our introduction, rough and smooth, large and small, light and dark, to draw the viewer in. Number 3, to ensure that you use the entirety of your paper, your drawing must touch at least 3 sides of that paper. Number 4, you seamlessly incorporate your ink blot into your drawing. That means that it looks like it belongs there, like it's part of the drawing. If you meet these 4 grading criteria, not only are you going to get a good grade, you're also going to produce a successful Something Out of Nothing project. As with all of our assignments, I'm going to give you a process to follow that is going to lead you to a successful place to both get a good grade and have a project that you're proud of. So number 1, the first thing that you want to do is look at the ink blot on your paper. Turn that piece of paper around and let your subconscious run free. If I look at it this way, I kind of see maybe the back of a chair. If I look at it from this way, I see maybe something falling from the sky. It could be a comet. It could be Icarus. Now, I've already decided that I kind of see some sort of old, gnarled looking tree from this direction. So I'm, seeing the branches. I'm going to build those out using my cross-hatching technique. Maybe the trunk of the tree is going to come down here. So I have sort of a basic idea. All right, so you move on to the next step. Once you have a good idea, you start sketching in lightly with pencil your ideas and asking yourself, how can I seamlessly make this ink blot a part of my drawing? How can I make it fit in there like it belongs? I'm just kind of going to develop my tree. Obviously, I'm going to give it some branches. Kind of really make it look more like a tree. Again, I don't have a solid plan. I'm kind of letting my mind unfold around this as the surrealists did, and just kind of letting my subconscious inform my conscious mind. Letting these deep thoughts sort of drive the visuals that are coming out of my mind. And I just had this idea from my subconscious mind about a bunch of little people sitting in here having a fire or something. So I think I'm going to put my tree in a distant landscape, and that I can put in a little horizon line, and that kind of locates my tree somewhere. So once you've started sketching in with pencil, I want you to ask yourself, how can I use contrast, large, small, rough, smooth, light and dark, to draw the viewer's eye around the page and tell them what to look at? We have this thing that's kind of up close to us. I think I want to put another tree right here, and I'm making it a little bit smaller to help create contrast. What you want to do now, once you have your rough sketch in, is show it to the people at your table. See if they have some suggestions for you, maybe have a discussion about your ideas and really get them solidified. If you feel confident and your peers do as well, please come up and see me and get approval so that you can move on to the use of your pen. Once you've gotten approval, you're going to use cross-hatching to create contrast and demonstrate that you know how to make an even value scale, just like we did in the practice. You want to demonstrate using cross-hatching that you know how to do the different value shades. As you can see, I'm layering on the first layer of crosshatch lines. I'm going to start building them up layer upon layer so that you can start seeing the different values. I just filled in a number 5 in the tree stump hole. I'm going to come back through and continue to blend. On the other side of the trunk, I'm starting to add layers 1, 2, 3. Now you can see I'm adding 4. Alright, you guys, so to recap, we have learned about surrealism, how it sort of maybe connects to your lives through popular culture. We have learned about value. We've learned about contrast. Remember, large versus small, rough versus smooth, light versus dark. You got to practice doing your value scales and use cross-hatching to do that. You've seen my teacher demonstration where I showed you guys that I knew how to use cross-hatching and make an even blend from dark to light. Now it's your opportunity to practice these skills. I've left my teacher drawing at this sort of unfinished stage so that I can develop my drawing with you guys as we go along. Best of luck.